Dean, good to see you. How are things? How's it going?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a good season, right?
Very good season. We're sat here in Club Red, which is an environment you know very well. You've been hosting Club Red this year for us. How have you found that being back at the Dons?
Yeah, it's been really good. I had a conversation with Mark, the commercial director, in the summer, and he obviously was explaining to me the differences that are being made here at the stadium for the upcoming season, and he really wanted me to be a part of that. And I was only too obliged to say yes, and not just as an ex-player, but as now a supporter of the club, and you know my son supports the club, and it was a no-brainer really for me to come back and not just share my experiences, but go and enjoy some amazing football along the way. And so I can't really complain with how the season's gone, from kind of being a host up to being a fan as well. So yeah, it's been great.
It's a fantastic setup, isn't it? And I think what's really, really nice now, and something relatively new for our club, is that we've got the likes of yourself involved, Dean Lewington obviously, and we've got ex-players now getting involved on a match day, and that's something that maybe 5-10 years ago we wouldn't have been able to do.
No, I suppose that's also because of the time that the club's been around, right? So it's still a relatively young club, and you are getting sort of old players like myself now sort of saying, yeah, we're happy to come back and to share those experiences and be a part of the next generation of players, and you know, the next phase of Milton Keynes Dons Football Club, right? So I'm really glad that the likes of myself and obviously a proper club legend in Mr. Lewington is here behind the scenes, kind of showing not just their support but their love for the club still. So yeah, like I said, I'm truly glad to have come back this season, and long may that continue until I'm really old and grey. Yeah, I look forward to what next season brings now.
And you mentioned it, Dean, it's been an unbelievable season, hasn't it? The best season the club's had for a very long time. You know what it means to get promotion with this football club, and I think we saw that on the final day, didn't we? What it meant to everybody.
Yeah, it's really funny because you know you can look at it from like an ex-player point of view, where you're quite judgmental on some of the players, and you kind of look at it, I could have maybe done that slightly better, or I would have done it like this, or whatever, and you look at it like in that way, but also you can look at it as a fan and as a supporter of the club. And you know, there has been some moments in the season, I'm not going to lie, where I started to question, is this going to be the squad to do it? And you know, and I'm probably wasn't the only one, even some of the players and staff at times. Is it going to be the year that we start this kind of momentous rise? And you know, just thank God that there was a sort of a real tough time in the season where the players, even with injuries, you know, they just stepped up. You know, with one player was injured, Rushy coming in, you know, when he come back from injury, sort of notched a few goals, and then Callum got injured, but then when he came back, he made another massive impact. You know, got Nathaniel Mendez-Lang coming back late on in the season as well. I mean, what a player that we've had missing for quite a large chunk of the season, and yet still do so well. So I know what it feels like to get promoted with this club, and I felt like the response of the fans and the club in general, because it was kind of a start of a new era, was immense, was just great. And you know, I shouldn't be saying it, but I was on the pitch with my son as well, celebrating at the same time, because it meant a lot to us as well. So and for the city. So it's like I said, it's what a fantastic time to be a part of this club, and what a time it should be for those that are thinking about, you know, wanting to be part of this club. It's times now.
The future's very bright, isn't it?
I'm selling the club for you.
You really are. Please do. We appreciate it. I think there have been a couple of tough years before this one. And you're right, there were moments where there was probably a little bit of doubt, I think, for me and for most of the fan base. There was that, I think it was 14 games we went unbeaten from turn of the year right the way through into March. And I think at that point, it started to go from hope to maybe expectation, which is something you've got to deal with as well. Yeah,
and the players would have sort of felt that. And I suppose my only experience with you know, staff members in Darren Potter and Richie Barker, probably more specifically, you know, who's been there and done it many, many times in taking teams through that promotion battle. He would have analysed it throughout the season. He would have said, like, you know, now is the time to put a run together. And I'm not saying that, you know, he can just click his fingers and it happens, but he's got all the experience in the world to be able to talk to the players in the right way, you know, talk to the manager in the right way to say, you know, if we can keep the players sort of their mentality right, their togetherness right at this real crucial period of time, then why can't we put a run together? And if we're going to do it, it kind of needs to be now. And so, yeah, it was a long run, 13 or 14 games, wasn't it? And, you know, it's always sad to see that run come to an end. You want them to sort of continue it forevermore, but they needed it at that point because it went from kind of a hope to a real, like, you know, we can do it now. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about your career with the Dons, Dean, but before that, I suppose, just sort of touching on your football career in general. You came through with Ipswich, who have also had a fantastic season. It's been a good year for your former clubs. How pleased were you to see them get promoted, and obviously everything that football club gave to you?
Ipswich Town, when they got promoted a couple of years ago, was the first time back in the Premier League in, I think, from when I first sort of started coming through the ranks when I was in the academy, which was a long time ago. So, you know, for you know the residents of Ipswich and globally, I still go places all over the world whereby there's an Ipswich shirt somewhere. You know, so that club is huge in the grand scheme of things, and what they gave to me as a young player coming through the ranks was, you know, stability. They gave me, you know, a platform to be able to express myself. And you look back at a lot of the academy players that came through the system there, you know, there were some fantastic players that ended up having wonderful careers, and I was part of that kind of wave of just good coaches, good setup within the academy, and they've just gone strength to strength now, and I just hope they can sustain their kind of Premier League position for a longer period of time and start climbing that table as well, because they're a big club, big club. So I'm super happy that they've got promoted in the same year that obviously the Dons have done it as well. So yeah, our household is a very happy one at the moment. But in career-wise, they like I said, they gave it to me, gave me that platform very young. But I think what they also did, which was really good for me, was at a point in my career whereby you could see there was, like, you know, started to stall a little bit, and, you know, I needed a change, and they recognised that as well. And it's always easy just to sort of let players go and never see them ever again. But they sat me down and they really analysed that, what's the best thing for me now, and you could stay here. You could stay at this club if you really want, like almost if you really want to, but we don't think that's the right thing for your career. And the coaches that I'd worked with in that time, we really sat down and said, no, the right thing to do is to go and find, you know, a club that is going to give you regular game time. And not a lot of clubs, I hope that more clubs do that nowadays, but I think at that time it was just like, you know, you don't have a contract anymore, see you later. But that just goes to show the type of club that Ipswich Town are.
And was it from there that you went to Yeovil, is that right?
Yeah, down to Somerset, down to Yeovil, and found my feet down there, which again, Terry Skiverton and Nathan Jones at the time were like he was a player coach, but Terry Skiverton, the gaffer at the time, were just like, look, we know what you can do as a player. We just want to, you know, give you a chance at this level of football. And I'd gone from kind of being a boy to a man very quickly, because you know, for those that are watching this and know me as a player, I wasn't an out number 9. You know, I wasn't winning many headers in my career, but they stuck me up front. You know, and in sort of lower end relegation battle in League One and trying to play as a number 9, getting hold of the ball and getting smashed by defenders, it wasn't very pretty, but it taught me men's football very quickly, and I think that helped set me up for the next sort of 7-8 years of my career. So yeah, thankful for going down there, and for Terry for giving me a chance.
Exactly that. And so at this point you're established. Who was the first person that mentioned MK Dons to you? When did that start to become an option in your head?
John Gorman.
There you go.
I mean, I don't need to say anything else, right? John, Mr. Gorman himself. I worked with him very briefly at Wycombe when I went on loan there, and he was the gaffer there. And you know, just what a guy, what an exceptional name in the world of football, and you know, not just at sort of club football, but national football as well. And he rang me just and said, would you come and sign for the Dons? And I almost was in the car before we'd end the call, kind of thing, and said absolutely. So it wasn't Carl that called me, it was him, because he knew if I call him, he'll probably come and sign, you know, whereas Carl, you know, Scouser calling me or something like that, I'll probably go, no, that's all right, I'll go somewhere else. But Mr. Johnny G called me, and you can't say no to John Gorman, unfortunately. And that sort of brought me here very quickly, and again, big moments sort of make decisions like very easily. And when I turned up at the club, it wasn't just Carl and John standing at the door, it was Pete Winkelman standing there as well. And I think that just says a lot about him and the club, you know, joining. They had real care about the players that they were bringing in at that time, and He'd done that with every player. You speak to anyone that signed around that time, it was like Pete was always there as well to sort of welcome you to the club, even if you hadn't signed. He's always, he was there, and it made the decision very, very easy.
And what were your first impressions of the club at the time? We'd had an interesting start, I suppose, and between Paul Ince and Roberto Di Matteo, it had been some sort of noteworthy seasons, but I think you joined in that period where the Championship was very much the goal. We felt like each year we were sort of chipping away at it. What was MK Dons like back then?
Well, I played here when obviously I was at Yeovil. I scored here when I think we drew 2-2, or might have maybe lost, but I scored, so that's all I cared about. And I remember coming here from little old Hewish Park, and just you can't help but look around and just go, wow, this is... And I think it does it to a lot of players in the lower leagues. You come here and you go, this is a Premier League stadium, right? So I was blown away by the setting. But obviously MK were pushing, and it was that year they lost out to Peterborough. And when I got the call, I think it was sort of obviously just after they'd just missed out, and I'd watched the playoffs and I'd seen, the likes of Glees not having a great time, and just losing out on that kind of that trip to Wembley, but it kind of made me think, no, I want to try and help if I can. I know it seems weird, but try and help their club sort of push through to the next step. So when I got the call, it was sort of almost destiny that I'd been watching the games thinking, I know Peterborough are there now, but just watching the way that MK Dons played and the way that Carl was, and seeing some of the players like knocking the ball around, it's like, yeah, I could play for a team like that. So when he called as well, it was just like, yeah, not a problem at all. I can definitely play for this club. And when you do sign, it never felt awkward, never felt different, even though a lot of teams and fans and they talk about this club in very different ways, but it never felt like that as a player coming into MK Dons with all of its history. And I was just welcomed in with open arms, and that's why I always fight back when people say things about the club, because I'm like, you can't talk about it like that because you don't know. And so yeah, I can't speak highly enough about my time here, really.
And you had
from the get-go.
Well, there you go. And you had a few good seasons, and obviously we'll build to sort of 2014-15, but just before it.
Yeah.
That season before, which wasn't a particularly great season in the grand scheme of things. I think it was the first time we hadn't really challenged for the playoffs in a little while.
Yeah.
But there were players like Patrick Bamford, Dele Alli, George Baldock, all of a sudden coming through, and it was it's all timing, isn't it, in football? And I think we were in a really good position going into the start of that season. Then you go into the Man United game and all of that, and to an extent the rest is history. But it was just sort of on the edge of sort of,
I know what you're saying. Like, I kind of joined the club when they were on a high, and that first season we lost out to basically Jordan Rhodes, but Huddersfield in the playoffs again. So it was 2 years on the bounce, and but I came in sort of in my prime. The top goal scorer that year, and I was joint top goal scorer the following year. So I had 2 really, really good seasons, and the third season, you started seeing players like Dele started and Brendan Galloway's and Giorgio Vasulos and people like that started to sort of just get a little bit of time in and around the first team, and you just started seeing sort of almost, it sounds bad, but like better players start joining in with the more senior players, and if I've got to say it, but Brendan was the one for us that we just looked at and was like, wow, this kid is just like a horse running up and down the left hand side, and both fullbacks really, and he really sort of set the standard for the type of academy players coming through. But that's kind of when you started to see, like, I know what you're saying, that sort of change in producing really, really good players, but also Carl was giving them a chance. And even though we sort of dropped off it that season, we didn't really, I can't remember where we finished in the end, but it wasn't a very successful season. But we just started giving players like Dele the chance, and giving them the chance to make mistakes. And I remember that season him costing us so many games. But Carl was just giving him the responsibility to, like, no, you need to learn. We're not going to get promoted, so we need players like you to learn your trade. Because when he came back, like, the rest is history.
It really is. And then that following season, I mentioned it already, but the Man United game, I mean, it was such a moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At the time, it was a moment, but since then, I think it's only sort of grown the impact of that game and just what that was like from your perspective, from the team's perspective. I mean, I remember even the draw being exciting.
It's funny, and you see all these sort of social media things now, videos of like when these low league teams, they get their draws, and it's just absolute pandemonium, and it felt like that. We hadn't quite set it up in that way of expecting this big draw, and then just pulled out Man United from absolutely nowhere, and you just think, wow, this is, as a player, you think, wow, this is great. You want to play against the biggest names in the world. I think they slightly underestimated us. So if you look at the team sheet, and like Louis van Gaal, he was actually, if I'm honest, quite disrespectful about Milton Keynes at the time, and I think that fueled a lot of us. And obviously, actually going into the game, we wanted to win it. It wasn't a case of let's just try and put on a performance in front of a full stadium. We were like, no, we want to win this game. And just luckily for us at that period of time, we just had some fantastic footballers, but a great squad at the same time. Casey's of this world, the Carl's at the back, Potsy in the middle, the Dave in goal pulled off an unbelievable save in that game as well. It's like we just had a great group, but some absolute sort of standout individuals at the same time. And I think Delhi was well and truly introduced into the world of football that game, and just absolutely ran the show. And I think my best bit in that game was I came off at one. It was 1-0 up. I came off, and Danny Green, I think, came on for me, and he's a big Man United fan, and he just went on, didn't know, he was just running around like a headless chicken, I think, but same as me. And I remember sitting there when the fourth goal went in, and everyone was up. Even the Man United fans were celebrating. By that point, they'd just given in. Everyone's celebrating. And I just sat there in the corner, just shaking my head. And I remember Tony, our kit man, turning around and just looked at me, and he's like, "You're right." I was like, I just can't believe it. I genuinely cannot believe what's going on. We're beating Manchester United 4-0. Like, this is ridiculous. I'll wait until I tell my mates. As if they wouldn't know. As if they wouldn't know anyway. Most of them were there, and it's just, a momentous moment for the club, and one that we can continue to talk about today, which is great.
Absolutely. For me, it's Ben Reeves. It's the no-look pass where he sends them the other way.
For Bennett, yeah.
And if you a couple of years later, if you'd have said, oh, well, that day we had Will Grigg, Benik Afobe and Dele Alli, you'd have gone, yeah, of course it was a good team, but at the time they weren't those players yet.
No, you're right. I remember when Benik joined us, I'm pretty sure he'd struggled with injuries the seasons before, and he sort of got given a chance with us, and Griggy was making a bit of a name for himself, but again, he wasn't on fire at that point. And then like I said, Dele was having a great season, but he was our player, he was our boy kind of thing. So it just all clicked. It all clicked at the same time. Benik had the season of his life, sort of half a season of his life. Griggy had the season of his life, which sent him on to bigger and better things. And we just got very, very, very lucky, I think. And one that lives in the memory of fans will do for many years. And hoping now that this team, this new era, can start to create moments like that for the next generation. I'm
sure they will, and it all came together, didn't it, on the final game of the season? Yeovil, your former team. We did our bit effectively. Even Louis scored twice. So we were doing our bit at the stadium. And again, social media was coming around, but it was that wonderful final day of the season where you're checking elsewhere and you wanted to know what Preston were doing. And unbelievably, it fell for us. I don't think anyone was expecting it, really.
No. Again, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Preston went on some ridiculous 25-game run of not being beaten. And so we were expecting them to get at least a draw. So it meant we had to win. So we'd done our job very, very early on, and it was just a case of the waiting game. And I remember a point in that game, because I wasn't starting, and I remember I was never one to sort of go to the gaffer and say I should be playing. And that was the one game I went to the gaffer and actually knocked on his door and was like come on, I've got to play this game. And he said, look, and he guaranteed me, and he was always good, Carl, but he said, I'll guarantee you'll be on the pitch when we get promoted. And I was just like, I couldn't. I was never going to say no, I'm going to throw my toys at the pram, but I was really disappointed. And he was right. I was on the pitch, and but I remember one point when there's so much going on in the stands. I could hear some people shouting, "It's 2-0 to Colchester," and then it was some random was saying that it's a draw, and you could just hear things going on. Then Carl Baker ran past me, and he just went, "I've just been told it's 3-0 Colchester." And it's I've heard about 7 different scores here. I was like, which one is it? Because you just don't really know. You're trying to concentrate on the game. But then there was a massive roar, and you just sort of suddenly went, and you looked over at the bench, and they're all almost celebrating already. And when there was that moment at the end when their game had finished, and we had 3 or 4 minutes left to play, and you just had this sea of people on the side ready to sort of pile onto the pitch. It was just just an incredible moment. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It was great.
Fantastic. No, you're allowed to. You're absolutely allowed to. The season that followed it in the Championship, obviously very difficult. Obviously, I think it was always going to be tough, but I don't think any of us probably appreciated at the time how tough it was going to be. And then you come back down to League One, which is difficult. Carl moves on, and all of a sudden that group that was together, 18 months, 2 years before, changes very quickly, which is part of the game.
Unfortunately, yeah, it is part of the game, and we had a really difficult season in the Championship, and for one reason or another, and it started unbelievably well. I remember we won 4-1 away from home. I think it was Rotherham, first game of the season, and top of the league, thinking, what's all the fuss about? This is easy. And then it was a really difficult season for lots of different reasons, but that is football at the end of the day, and unfortunately it kind of had a real knock-on effect to maybe the morale of the squad and the fans going into the following season, and it obviously led to Carl's demise, and Richie sort of was caretaker for a little bit, but it kind of felt like the start of a really long period of time where the club was just trying to reset, like find their feet again, and obviously it eventually got there under the sort of Liam Manning, or sort of the end of Russell Martin, Liam Manning era, and Liam sort of took the club forward again, and it nearly got there, but if you collect it all together, it felt just like a long time of not so great stuff up until last season, and I'm probably generalising that quite a lot, but if you do look at that period of time, it's like disappointing times. Even when we got promoted from League Two, I remember talking to someone about the promotion. They were like, "Yeah, but we didn't play very well," and you're like. And that was like quite a general thing. Like lots of people were like, yeah, but we didn't do it in the right way. And you're thinking, you got promoted, come on. But obviously, it still felt like, even with the success, it wasn't the way that MK Dons should be doing things. And that's why this one felt so different. Yeah. Because it was just elation that we'd done it in a way that it should be done, and we'd bring in the community into it. And hopefully that sort of sets the tone now for the next 10 years of the club's history. I
hope so. I'd like to ask you about my favourite Dean Bowditch moment, if that's all right.
Go on then. Many of them. Loads to choose from. Genuine. Count on one hand.
I grew up watching you play, Dean. I saw you play a lot of football.
It's a shame, isn't it?
But there's one game in particular, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Stadium MK, hammering down with rain, 0-0. Playing AFC, penalty to the Dons. You step up to take it, and you just hammered it in, and it was a great moment.
When you look back, what a rubbish penalty, by the way.
They all count.
It was a terrible penalty, but I felt, like when you hear of players, sometimes they're like, I ignore everything going on around me. I've done this a million times in training. I felt relaxed, and I was not. I can't swear, can I really? I was cacking myself, basically. And I stepped up, and I just felt, it wasn't necessarily the fans, it was just knowing like all the boys behind me, and they knew that it was quite an important part of the season, like stage of the season as well. If we didn't get this result, it could maybe have a massive knock-on effect of the rest of the season. So to just find the back of the net, like by all means necessary, and then wheel off. And I remember running off, and obviously knee sliding. It was great in the corner, but there was a snap of me running off, and I was like, in a state of pure like elation. And there was a guy who jumped the boarding or the hoarding to run after us, and I think it was Lee who'd taken the photo, or someone had taken the photo. Said, "Oh, we can't use that now because we'll be sort of promoting." The fans encroaching onto the pitch, and I was like, that's like the best photo of me I've ever seen. No, you can't use it. So, but what a moment for me, and that's funny you say that, because when people ask about my favourite game, I can talk about the Man Uniteds, I can talk about the Ovals as from a club perspective, but just personally knowing the type of pressure I was feeling at the time, that's probably the standout game for me, just because. Obviously, of who's against as well.
So you finish your career with us, Dean. I think it's more than 225 games. I think it's 48 goals that you scored. So you're right up there. So a hell of a stint with us. And then on to Northampton, and then was it Stowmarket that you finished your career with?
I know. It's it was one of those things where I signed for Northampton. Justin Edinburgh, God rest him, sort of he sort of gave me the call to come over, and I was like, really local. It's sort of in that stage of my career, sort of towards the back end, I didn't want to be travelling here, there and everywhere. There's lots of stuff going on in sort of in a family point of view, so I didn't want to be sort of up in Scotland or abroad. I was offered to go abroad as well, and it was the best opportunity at the time to be local, and it just so happened that at that time in the club's history, in Northampton's club history, they had some sort of investment, and we ended up bringing in about 15 new players. Yeah, it ended up being a humongous squad. So yeah, when I joined Northampton under the Justin Edinburgh era, obviously we at that time we signed many players, so I was in a massive squad. So probably didn't get the most out of my time at Northampton, even though not for a lack of trying. It was just, I think at that time it was a difficult environment to try and to secure your place, and obviously Justin Edinburgh was sort of moved on very quickly, which was a shame because he's a really good guy, and then we just had a couple of not so great managers in that period, and so then it led to me getting towards the end of my career, and I sort of had that moment in 2017. God, it feels a long time ago now. 2019. Sorry, I'm doing myself injustice there. I had a moment in 2019 where it was like, what do I do? And it sort of coincided with the birth of my son, and so I decided to retire. I just decided that was it. I'm going to put all my time and efforts into my now young family. I'll figure out what's next in a few months' time. Let's just put the time into that, which I will never be able to get that time back. And it was a wonderful, amazing time. But I remember about 4 months later, my wife was saying to me, "You need to go and play football again." One of those moments, please get out of the house. And so I'd been talking to a friend of mine who was playing at Stowmarket. It's all Suffolk based, and a few people I still knew from that way. And he said, "I'll come and speak to the owners at Stowmarket." Now, I don't know if anyone knows how far Stowmarket is from Milton Keynes, but it's quite far.
Right.
But they sort of said, "Look, we're trying to build something here, and we really want someone like yourself with your history of your time at Ipswich to come and play for us, and help promote the club and help support it and stuff." And actually, it was a really nice meeting, and so I went and played there. But it coincided with the wonderful pandemic that we had in 2020, and that season that we were absolutely dominating got curtailed, and that was sort of the end of a lot of things during that time, and that's when I sort of really called it a time of my career, and moved on from there. So that was my final team to play for, and actually I had a really good time over there. It was only a couple of nights a week and games on a Saturday, but what a great group of lads. And actually the difference in quality between sort of step 4, step 5 football and the leagues, not a lot, if I'm honest. It was probably more just the fitness and the psychology but the actual talent of some of those players was brilliant. I was actually really quite surprised by it, but the time had come at that point to finally hang my boots up in 2020.
And not too long after that, I think you then came back to work for the club in the commercial department, which obviously laid the foundations for the role that you're doing with Club Red now.
Exactly. So I sort of spoke to John Cove and Mr. Winkleman not so long after we went through the pandemic. It was kind of sort of summery time, and I was like, I'd love to be able to see what opportunities there were back in the club, whatever that may be. And they were always so open to bringing me back, and they just had to figure out what that would be. And I sort of first came back for the Sports and Education Trust as an ambassador, and I was out sort of singing the words of what a great organisation they were. And what it helped me understand was sort of there is life outside of just playing and coaching, and there's another world out here I can sort of dive into a little bit more. And I found myself sort of communicating with sort of managing directors and CEOs of companies like really easily, like really well. It was like, and I know it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but as a player you sort of go, oh, these people, like they're elevated above everyone else. Like you can't actually touch these people. But actually, when you start talking to them, they're just really normal people, just very switched on kind of thing. And I found myself just sort of gravitating towards these people and sort of utilising that relationship skills to to build presence for the Sports and Education Trust, but also sort of build funds for all the wonderful initiatives they did. And at the time, we had a commercial manager in Andy Waldridge who just saw a bit of potential there to say, actually, well, why don't you come and join the commercial team, because we really see how you communicate with these people, and we can maybe see how that can be utilised in the commercial department. And me, him, and Lucy Dawson, God rest her, had a wonderful year. The dream team. I mean, we called ourselves that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dream team, and we smashed it out of the park from a commercial point of view. But we were doing incredibly well on the pitch, which obviously helps under the Liam Manning era. So yeah, had a really good sort of transition away from playing into what is sort of, a lot of people kept saying to me, like, real work. But I was sort of under the umbrella still of this really supportive football club, which massively helped. So then obviously that then led me to sort of going away for a period of time, which then helped come back to the club in that kind of hosting role, because yes, the personality skills and the relationship skills is what I sort of have taken from working in the commercial department into sort of a new space. But it's helped coming back into this environment, because now I'm not only just being able to sort of give my expertise on a football level, but actually I'm talking to people on, you know, Club Platinum or the Captain's Lounge or Captain's Club, whatever it's called now, and, you know, in Club Red as well as a host. You know, you're surrounding yourself with people that, you know, not only supporters of the club, but, you know, the business owners and business people, and you get to learn how to maybe sort of be able to promote the club in a way as well, how we can sort of all come together as a community of businesses, because the business network in Milton Keynes is massive, it's huge. And if we can get them on board as well with supporting the football club of the city, then, you know, you're winning a battle there as well as getting the community along. So it's massively supported me as I've gone away and come back, which I've been massively grateful for.
Which is why it's so great to have such good ambassadors like yourself with such a strong connection to the club. Just finally then, Dean, to finish things off, what's next? What else are you up to? What can we expect from Dean Bowditch?
Well, I suppose at the moment I moved away from the world of football. My full-time role, I work for a company called Marshall, who I think a lot of people watching this will know exactly who they are, and, you know, sponsored the club for many years, and massive powerhouse in Milton Keynes and now globally. And I work with them on a sort of a partnership level without going into too much detail as to what I do. But again, it all comes down to people, it comes down to relationship skills, it comes down to just day-to-day management of what's needed, let's get it done, by all means necessary. And there are processes to things. I'm not a big process fan, but, you know, it's just about, what is it you need, what is it we need, let's sort of come together and work something out. And partnership management essentially sort of is that, even though there are like deliverables and stuff, but again, won't go into that. But working for a brand like that is the bit that really enticed me in, you know. Yeah. So yeah, working for a big brand like Marshall, you start to see it everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Every time I watch the TV, like there's some kind of music going on, Marshall's there. You know, it's no matter where I look now. So it's an incredible brand, to work for. And also I'm starting sort of my own football journey again, which is a part of me that I just cannot ignore. My son joined his local football team in Winslow Juniors recently. He's only 6 years old, and, you know, I'm there every training session, every game, you know, and I mean, good luck to him having a dad like me, you know, who's, I love the fact that I can give him all the support in the world and give him the freedom that I had from my dad and my man dad. To be able to just go and express myself. But, you know, he's a good little player, but it's given me a little bit of fire in my belly to give something back. And I don't want to ignore all the knowledge and all the experience that I've got to be able to help the next generation of players and ones that really truly do care about football and their football journey. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of these players. So I'm going to be starting up my own sort of football coaching school, which hopefully will kick off very nicely in the area in Buckinghamshire. And the main thing about it is just supporting all the next generation on their football journey through technical development, through games, matches, whatever it may be. It's a way to bring what is an already very established brand that my brother runs back in Hertfordshire into Buckinghamshire. So I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to giving back to a lot of these young players who just need a little bit of help, a little bit of support, a little bit of guidance. And I know I can do that. I know I can give that back. So yeah, massively looking forward to that.
Which is really, really exciting, Dean. I'm sure you're really looking forward to it. And then just to finish things off, really, what next for this football club? Do you think? I think we've all seen in the last couple of years, the work that the new ownership group are doing. Neil Hart, the CEO, obviously you know Mark from the commercial department. Yeah. It's, as ever with the Dons, it's all there, isn't it? And I think for the first time in a long time, there's some expectation and some hope, which is really exciting. It's almost like this sort of feels like the sky's the limit, right? There doesn't seem to be a roof on what this club can do. Obviously, time will tell, but these foundations that kind of Neil and the new ownership, has put into place is incredible. But those foundations need to be built very strong, very carefully, and it feels like they're doing that. And even though it's a results-based business and we need to see results, which we're seeing, and the fans hopefully are seeing that very quickly, maybe quicker than some maybe have anticipated, but ultimately if those foundations are laid properly, then the sky is the limit. And League One, here we come, but I'm not saying we can do a Wrexham, but why not? Why not? Dean, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Best of luck.
Cheers.